Welcome to today's 5-minute professional learning bite presented by CAPITALISE Education. Today we're going to have a look at supporting students on the autism spectrum with transitions. The challenge of supporting students on the autism spectrum is that they are all different. As the saying goes, once you've met one child on the autism spectrum, you have met one child on the autism spectrum. When supporting students on the autism spectrum with transitions, not one approach will work. As such, teachers need to have a problem-solving mindset around how they can address the challenges and transitions can be difficult for students on the autism spectrum who have challenges with executive functioning. This is because transitions require cognitive flexibility, the ability to move from one idea to another quickly. Transitions can also be difficult for students on the autism spectrum who have challenges with repetitive behaviours. This is because stability provides a sense of calmness and safety. Transitions do not involve stability and involve rapid change. Every person on the autism spectrum is unique and their needs will be reflected differently. Because every student on the autism spectrum is different, there is not one approach to supporting students with transitions that will work for all students. As such, teachers need to have a number of different ideas for supporting students on the autism spectrum with challenges associated with transitions. Let's have a look at one approach to supporting students. Our hypothetical student on the autism spectrum has difficulties with transitions. The functional impact for our hypothetical student is that he is still working when other students are packing up. He is packing up when other students are working, and the student becomes upset when activities change. So what can we do to support our hypothetical student who has difficulties with transitions? We can use detailed visual schedules in our classroom. However, as a classroom teacher, it's important to remember that not one approach will work for all students on the autism spectrum. As the saying goes, no tool is omnicompetent. There is no such thing as a master key that will unlock all doors. Rather than wielding a single tool, generalists have managed to collect and protect an entire tool shed, and they show the power of range in a hyper-specialised world. As a classroom teacher, do you have a range of strategies to support students on the autism spectrum? In relation to visual schedules, you'll need a range of approaches because not one approach will work for all students on the autism spectrum. So how can we do this in the classroom? Remembering that this is only one approach to supporting students on the autism spectrum who struggle with transitions through the use of visual schedules. A classroom teacher could use a simple visual schedule like this one displayed at the front of the classroom to show the student on the autism spectrum who struggles with transitions what is happening throughout the day at school. However, it's not enough just to have this visual schedule displayed at the front of the classroom. The classroom teacher needs to regularly refer to it, identifying what is happening and pre-warning students prior to the transition. If it was me, for example, in science, and we are doing science, 5 minutes before we start to pack up for science and transition to reading, I'd be pre-warning the students. If something changes throughout the day, it is important that the classroom teacher identifies this on the visual schedule as soon as the teacher finds out about a change in the schedule. A simple timer on a phone could be used to support the students during the transition from one activity to another. When a classroom teacher puts in a support for a student on the autism spectrum, he or she needs to think, is this support developing independence in my student? If it's not developing independence, the classroom teacher needs to think how I can adjust and change this support over time to develop independence for my student. As the saying goes, while people's individual needs will differ, the starting presumption should be one of independence rather than dependence, with educators providing the support needed to maximize this. How could we support our student on the autism spectrum to develop independence to cope with change and transitions using this visual schedule? It can be challenging to support a student on the autism spectrum to develop independence when they struggle with transitions. The process begins with understanding my student as a learner. This hypothetical student loves mathematics, so I'm going to use their interest in mathematics and love for mathematics as a way of developing independence. Using my visual schedule, I identify an activity that my student likes, in this case mathematics, and I block it out or hide it on the visual schedule so that when my student sees the visual schedule, I explain to them that I don't know what's going to happen at 12 o'clock, but we'll find out when we get to 12 o'clock. During the day, when it hits 12 o'clock, I would uncover the visual schedule to show that the unknown activity is mathematics, tying an uncertain event to an interest of my students. And I would then be making a big deal out of that sometimes changes that we don't know about are associated with things that we like. I'd be doing this process for a period of time, at least 4 weeks, until this process works effectively. Then I would start thinking about how I could then change the process to further develop independence in my student on the autism spectrum, develop their ability around transitions and uncertainty. Now that we've spent a significant period of time tying change and uncertainty to an interest of my hypothetical student on the autism spectrum, I now need to start thinking about how I support my student on the autism spectrum to understand that change or uncertainty is sometimes associated with events that aren't so pleasant and aren't tied to their interests. Knowing my hypothetical student on the autism spectrum deeply as a learner, I know that he doesn't overly enjoy writing. following the same process as before, but rather than covering up a preferred activity, I cover up an unpreferred activity, in this case writing. When we get to 11 o'clock, I uncover the activity on the visual schedule and make a big deal out of saying, hey, that's okay. We have to do an unpreferred activity, but we can do it. And then the next activity we have is mathematics. So I've tied uncertainty to an unpreferred activity, but I'm rewarding it by doing a preferred activity afterwards. Once I've been doing this for a period of time, I can start to think about how I further develop independence in my student. Once again, I'd be doing a strategy for at least a month to ensure that it works and it starts to develop independence in my student. At CAPITALISE Education, we believe that teachers achieve a lot more together than they do in isolation. As the African proverb goes, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.